Good morning, Malifaux players. It's great to be back. Not good, great to be back. It's been quite some time. It's quite the ride this last 18 months. Pandemics, insurrections, the ocean on fire, you name it, it seems to have happened, other than playing Malifaux. But once again, I am picking the game back up. I've got a couple games now under my belt. I believe this is the fourth one I've played since returning to play with my group of friends here in Northern California. And we're going to call this season two, given the long break we took. So this will be the first battle report of me relearning after relearning this game once again. Pretty excited. Got a couple games in with Arcanist, and I've been painting up some guilds. So we'll take a look at what I'm doing here. So for this battle report, I thought it was a very interesting match. And I'm going to have a lot of commentary at the end of this. There were a lot of lessons learned, but as I mentioned, I am painting up a guild. Once again, dipping my toe, leaving my beloved Arcanist faction to switch sides. And so I've been working on Dashel, and so we're able to get that on the board. My opponent Colonel is playing an outcast Zipp crew. So for my crew, obviously I had Dashel and the Dispatcher. I took a Guild Steward, Pale Rider with a lead line coat, Lone Marshal with a lead line coat, a Guild Lawyer, and a Mounted Guard. So the three horsemen here. Four soul stones. I feel pretty comfortable with Dashel, even though it's a summoner with a low soul stone. Uh, Starting off with a low amount of soul stones, given that the crew can pick up soul stones as it goes along. Thought this was we'll get into the strats and schemes in a moment, but thought this was something to give a try. The three riders seem to be some of the better models in the faction itself, and I hadn't seen the table. In fact, the way myself and Colonel did this was, during work we generated the the strats and schemes, and then throughout the day we went through that process. The app's just phenomenal for that. You don't need to be in the same spot. And it probably would have been a bit of a different crew if I'd seen the table, but we'll get into that in a minute here. My opponent, taking Captain Zipp, again, outcast, Earl Burns, the first mate, Iron Skeeter, Maris LaCroix, and then Vanessa Chambers, Midnight Stalker, and Lazarus. It's a pretty interesting list, and it certainly gave thought to both the strats and schemes as well as the opponent. The crew in general gives out the concealment bubbles with the sputtering exhaust. I think both Iron Skeeter and Captain Zipp do that. Lazarus gives out a bubble or aura of cover. So he's keeping his important models within both a concealment and cover bubble without having to worry about terrain. Certainly you could pick up some of that with the terrain as well, making some of my shooting a little less effective. Lazarus would be an inspired choice, as we'll see, but on into it. So we had Break the Line as the strat. We outflanks, deathbeds, claim jump, hidden martyrs, catch and release. Kind of a pretty straightforward. I'm not sure Dashel's the best in Break the Line, but I told myself I was gonna play 6 games no matter what with Dashel just to at least learn them. So I would end up taking outflank, thinking I could get there with some of my horses, or even some summon models, and then I really struggled with the other and took Guild Lawyer and Guild Steward for Hidden Martyrs. Those are the only 2 models capable of that. So not probably the wisest choice there. Zipp would also take Outflank, along with Hidden Martyrs with First Mate and Earl Burns. So Colonel had painted up this little train set you see here. and was excited to get on the table. Heck, I'm excited to get on some new terrain on the table as well. And so we decided on kind of a wrecked train theme going here, and you're probably going to immediately see what some of the issues are in that this would create some pretty tight maneuvering in the on the midline, and given it's break the line, we're going to have to get there. So we're sitting here looking at my deployment. Starting from the left, you've got the Pale Rider, Dashel, Burns, Mounted Guard, the Guild Lawyer and Stewart there in the back, and then all the way to the right, that is indeed a hooded rider, but standing in for the Lone Marshal. I don't have the Lone Marshal model yet, even to assemble and paint. So was using that. Hopefully I'll get one soon. It seems to be one of the better pieces in the Guild faction. Up above, and again, this was standard, I should mention, obviously, given the way this is deployed, standard deployment. You got First Mate up there on the hill. Looks like, I'm not sure what the heck that next model is, but you got Lazarus, Maris. Oh, that must be Zipp, kind of on the slope. Earl Burns is tucked in behind Lazarus, Vanessa. And then all the way off to the left at the top there, you can kind of see the Iron Skeeter, and there is the, what do you call it? The Midnight Stalker is also sitting over there. So he's got both flanks pretty well weighted. I think I had a little bad juju. You see our two beers sitting there, and I at this point grabbed his beer and started drinking out of his, which is a bit of a no-no, and probably is going to be the cause of everything that goes wrong in this particular battle report. Just a close-up of the deployment of kind of the main area. Again, that's a hooded rider there. Didn't have it standing in for the Lone Marshal. Better close-up of his deployment. I decided to do this at the last second. Just started snapping off pictures. So that's one thing I'm going to have to improve upon once I start doing these regularly. This game was about 10 days ago, so some of my memory is probably fragmented a bit. But even with the time going by, I do think this ended up being a pretty interesting game. So I drew a pretty atrocious first hand. I don't think I had anything over a 9, which is a bit problematic since I'm looking for something decent to get, a 12 or a 13 to get that Mounted Guard or an Executioner out there. Put some pressure. Usually the next mainstay that I've learned, at least in my one game, is the Rifleman. Still didn't even have a card for that, and I just, with the way the terrain was set up and his crew, I didn't think Riflemen were going to be particularly effective, and so just I really was starting my card cycle trying to hunt for that 12 or a 13. While that's happening, he's moving up on his flank. You see the Skeeter here. I think that was a ride with me, or fly with me, I should say. Bringing up the Midnight Stalker to threaten. And at this point, it's kind of interesting. Both of us have played each other so many times. We know our tendencies. He tends to prefer climb jump and not outflank. So he did definitely go against his tendency. He's a little bit more aggressive player than I am, and he's going to take advantage of my tendency to be of a bit of backfield counterpuncher style. Meanwhile, on the other flank, he's moved up. He kicked one of the breaking the line strap markers forward, and then is hiding behind the wagon. We determined. We hadn't discussed how tall they were, and so, do my height 3 horses see over them or anything along those lines? We ended up deciding that they were, height 5 wagons, so, we wouldn't have to worry about anything along those lines. But those strap markers are blocking in impassable terrain, and he's done a pretty good job jamming up that one little area there. Going to make it pretty tough for my horses to get through. And again, this is where maybe seeing there's a couple of thoughts, and I'll give my thoughts at the end on this particular map. It was really interesting to play on. I don't think it's something standard, but these big bases, now I know how some of the Euripides crew players might feel with a bunch of 40, 50 mil base models. So I was much more passive in this, and we're still in the first turn here, trying to really, like I said, get that card cycle and using activations to get a 12 or 13. I finally got a 12, and you see I summon a second mounted guard. That's the model you see there. Meantime, he has aggressively moved up, taken the midline in 3 different spots on each flank, and then here in the center, and threw up his piano markers. This is problematic. Those familiar with Lazarus's ability know that he's got a shockwave that doesn't need line of sight. So in other words, he's setting up to pitch hand grenades right over that wall he set up, and that's gonna be some problems there, especially for a crew that I'm staying a bit bubbled. I think I was also, well, we'll get into that. Meanwhile, on the other flank, I did a full-on run to get some reinforcements over there with the summon mounted guard, thinking he could hold some of the outflank and commit to that on the next turn, while the Pale Rider, starts moving that marker over. He's obviously already got it forward. I think the Midnight Rider, the Midnight Stalker had run up, kicked it forward, and then kind of moved back. The Pale Rider got a pretty excellent focus shot off that pinged a lot of damage. I think I might have severed it. So the Iron Skeeter is actually teetering a bit, which made me feel a bit better. Meanwhile, and this is at the end of the first turn here, on the other flank, I've got both the Lone Marshal and the Mounted Guard forward. He is absolutely seized that seized control of 2 gaps in the line there at the midpoint. He's got Zipp, Lazarus, Earl Burns, and Vanessa all in a concealment cover bubble with those models, and squeezing through, using his terrain markers effectively to make the passages even more narrow, and do a lot of hiding. With that said, he's got a highly mobile crew with at least Zipp and First Mate and Maris that can ignore the terrain during their movement. So he is not only sees the advantage in my mind and sees control of the game, and we're here at the end of the first turn, poised to do some good things. So we're early into turn 2 here. Again, I drew a extremely poor hand, and just was trying to decide what to do. At this point, I realized that kind of the delays that I had in trying to fish out a better card for a summon, cycle through them, cost me board control and positioning. And so I went early and just decided I was going to summon whatever I could. And so in this particular case, a Guild Sergeant. I think I could have done a Rifleman, but given the state here, dropping a Rifleman there, I don't think does anything. He ignores, I believe, cover, but not concealment, or vice versa. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. I apologize for the non-painted model there. I hadn't gotten around to painting up a Guild Sergeant yet. I will say this particular Guild Sergeant has a pretty uncanny resemblance to my opponent, and I am going to enjoy painting him up. So expect to see a red-bearded, bald Guild Sergeant in future battle reports with Dashel. At this point, you know, I am realizing that the wheels are coming off the train, so to speak. His board control and the next couple of tricks that he starts to pull on me really put a lot of pressure. Meanwhile, on the other flank, the Midnight Stalker, being fast on my side of the table, zips around to murk the mounted guard in a single activation. Just pummeled him into nothingness here, and is also there to protect the marker and make it difficult for me to do something about it. And again, I'm feeling pressure on both flanks. I'm feeling outmanned, outgunned on this flank, even with an Iron Skeeter that is, I think another good shot would probably take it down. But how to go about doing that and scoring some points was something I was challenged with. So in the end, I decided to push over, take a shot. This would position me to go after either marker. The Midnight Stalker must have had one more AP and kicked that marker even further forward. I missed the shot at the Skeeter here, but I have the ability either to push forward and start moving that other marker back up, or just get out of town and see if I can grab that fourth marker that no one seems to be around next turn. Meanwhile, a lot has kind of occurred here. I was able to push the marker on the extreme right flank back to the center line at the very least, and jam myself in and kind of got myself wedged in there. Maris has come forward. At this point, I am getting shockwave to death. The poor guild sergeant shows up and immediately gets blasted by 2 grenades over the wall. I think Maris also has a bottle. Dashel's on fire. Everybody's on fire. And I'm spending resources just kind of keeping this bubble going here. And I think at this point, I was keeping Dashel within 2 inches of the dispatcher. I had a huge fear of him just doing a run in and taking that dispatcher out, making sure that my summons would be much more difficult to achieve. And so I was staying in the bubble, keeping models close by, but the problem was the damage I was taking was from shockwaves, so the protected guard doesn't work. I'm having to spend high cards to ensure the dispatcher isn't taking damage, which then, obviously a summon I'm not going to care much about, but Dashel is not feeling particularly good right now. As I said, he's on fire, and has taken a lot, despite his armor, has taken a lot of damage. So this is the end of the second turn. The Lone Marshal's holding up, really kind of taking a lot of the focus from Vanessa, from Earl Burns, etc. And I don't think we see it here. Where's Zipp? Zipp is down at the bottom in the middle of my crew. This is not a great photo. Sorry about that. He's got, Earl Burns is able to kick the other marker forward. No, it's actually still on the center line as well, but he's not that worried about it. You can see he's got another marker down, and he's able to score his outflank on turn 2. So at the end of turn 2, and I'll start inserting the scores like I used to. Just realized I didn't do that. We're sitting at 2-0. He scored 1 for the outflank and 1 for the strat, and I still am barely out of my deployment zone. All right, so this is early into turn 3 here, and I will tell you that the hand I pulled up was amazing. It was the red joker. It was, I believe, 2 13s and a 12, and then a couple of moderate cards. I don't think I had anything less than an 8. Um, and so I finally found all my high cards. Immediately get an executioner out. Going to see if I can use him and Dashel more aggressively um, to see if I can get some of this board control back. Because right now I'm already doing the math in my head and realizing I'm heading for defeat. Meanwhile, the Zipp's in there, pummeling the Guild Steward. Guild Steward's on fire, so I think his hope is to take it down to 1 wound and let fire finish it off, which is the best way to deal with the Steward. But and I realize that too, which would screw my hidden martyrs. And so now I've got to deal with Zipp messing around with my support pieces while somehow getting control and squeezing myself between these gaps to get to some of these markers. So Maris comes in. Now he is trying to get the dispatcher out. So I'm using the protected guard to. I think I took 1 hit, risked it, and spread the rest over to the executioner. The executioner was engaged by Maris, was up forward. So executioner had to kill Maris, who promptly exploded and spread some more death and destruction onto my crew here. Sorry for the blurriness on this, but Lone Marshal's trying to claw his way out of this little gap that he's found himself in. The Colonel quite, is insistent on shoving Earl Burns into base-to-base contact, which is another observation in this particular matchup, given the tight quarters and even just on breaking the line. The Lone Marshal and the Mounted Guard have 0-inch attacking ranges, and so it's difficult to cover the markers because he can just, there's no way to cover the markers. I spent all this time positioning the marker when I kicked it back to ensure that there was no way he could touch the marker that he wasn't engaged, thinking I had a 1-inch engagement, and then realized it doesn't freaking matter. I have a 0-inch engagement, and there was no way of me stopping him from interacting with the marker, unless he was touching me. But anyways, Colonel is insistent on engaging my 0-inch Lone Marshal with his 0-inch Earl Burns. So I'm figuring that, hidden martyrs is there, but I got to do something. I got to start clearing some models. I got to kill something. He is taking activations and taking AP away from me while I haven't really messed with his. In fact, he's ahead of the game, against the summoner, which is impressive. So I take the bait. I kill Earl Burns, which will end up scoring him his first point for hidden martyrs. He cleverly is not that clever. There's not very many places he could actually place the marker, and kind of at this point, I was realizing, I could have tried to use these tight quarters and large bases to my advantage and prevent my opponent from kicking one of these markers over, because there would have been no place to place it. So something to think about in the future. But he put this particular breaking the line. He's engaging my Mounted Guard. For some reason, I made a mistake and thought Ride With Me couldn't. I mixed Ride With Me with Fly With Me and didn't think that Ride With Me could be used while engaged. It's the other way around. It's Fly With Me that can't be used if you're engaged, and Ride With Me you can use. So I could have gotten out there and kicked it back. So that ended up not really costing me a point, but it made it hard for me to have the ability to at least try to do something to stop that one breaking line marker from being on my side of the table and maybe pushing it over to his. Um, yeah, just another look here. Vanessa's crossed the center line or is on the center line. I forgot whatever her rules are. So she's smashing away at the lone marshal. You know, he's a good model. I mean, he was standing up to it, and no worries about him going down anytime soon. So on the other side, as I said, I had moved the Pale Rider over so that I could score. Move that breaking the line marker, strat marker over the center line, had it wedged in, so there's no way that he could counter it. So he decides to bring both the Iron Skeeter and the Midnight Stalker. You can't quite see, it's kind of hidden behind the coach there, or the engine. Both of them are engaged with the Pale Rider at this point. Just kind of a look at the right flank at the end of turn 3. So end of turn 3, he gets another point for hidden, or he gets a point for hidden martyrs, a second point for the strat, and I get a single point for the strat, making it 4-1. So I'm able to go pretty quickly with what's his name, the Executioner, kill Zipp. He launched and get him back so that for turn 5 I can do something with him. Not sure what. I don't think he's taking Lazarus down in one go unless he somehow sneaks a execute off. You can see that up the top there, the Lone Marshal was able to get the marker still on my side of the table, but it's kind of in a better position where I'm able to later in the turn throw it over the coach there, have enough space, and actually get it onto his half of the table. They're still burning. I think the only one that's burning, I was able to get the burning out. I used the dispatcher for an assist. Patted down the Guild Steward. I think I also used Dispel Magic to get rid of. Oh, I failed to dispel. I didn't have the cards. Failed to dispel magic, so Dashel's still burning. And at this point, he's got 1 health, 2 health left. He's got 2 health left with burning on him. The Pale Rider did a bunch of work, killed the Iron Skeeter, did the little bubble, also hit the Midnight Stalker, and the Midnight Stalker is down to 3 wounds left. So he's not doing so well at either, and I'm feeling a lot better. The Pale Rider is barely taking any damage. Feeling a lot better as far as this flank and perhaps denying him any more points. He's got the marker that was on the far left, the full 8 inches up the board. So that one would be worth 2. So there's no way I'm stopping him from getting 3, if not 4. So now it's somehow trying to control the other 2 markers and help them score my points. I'm at this point trying to claw my way into a closer game. The writing's on the wall that I'm not coming back to win it. Just the top down on the right flank, you can see I've got the one of the breaking the line markers, on the center line there that I'm going to be able to throw over the top of that coach or that overturned rail car in a pretty good position where he can score points or he can deny me points, but he can't do both. So we end the game at 4 and just talk out the 5th turn. We decide, there's no way he can stop me from killing Midnight Stalker with, if I use the, whatchamacallit, I've got so many tokens. Was not even pressured to use tokens. I used it once for the little do a bunch of damage, and I'm going to have enough to do it again, which would kill the Midnight Stalker without even swinging. I could certainly run over, drop a scheme marker, and score, and at least be in position on outflank there. But the problem is I can't do it on the other side. So I would deny him I deny him his final outflank, Dashel would die at the end of turn 5, the burning. I have no intention of leaving it on, creating the issue that he can't score his second hidden martyrs either. And so he's not going to get any more scheme. He's already at 3 at strat, but I would throw that other one over the top and score one for the strat as well. And then I was going to run my hidden martyr with maybe an Obey in there as well to engage Lazarus, have the Guild Steward do that near the end and be able to score a point, my final point for hidden martyr. So it ended up being a little closer than it was. He would have 3 for the strat and 2 for schemes. I would have 2 strat and 1 scheme, so it ended up as a 5-3 loss to me. So final 3-5, hard loss. Lessons, there's a lot that kind of went on. This is what I love about, again, relearning a game that I've learned to play, between M2E and then M2E to 3, and then now I'm relearning it all over again, it feels like. A couple things. My opponent took clear advantage of my usual cautious style, where I was like to be in that back position, counter punch, see the game develop, get my engine of whatever crew I'm playing, which is why I tend to prefer the bubble crews and summoners. Up, he took fantastic advantage, grabbed the center of the board, given the way that the map was laid out. Just really, really put me on my back foot. I do think that me really focused on trying to get a mounted guard or executioner out that first turn and spending more of my time trying to get some of the card cycle to fish out one was a bit of a concern. I probably should have just taken whatever, maybe just even summon a couple of guild hounds and have them yap around and run to the sides. They can squeeze, they're smaller bases. They could have gotten through. I don't know, maybe just take whatever you get that first turn is the first lesson. The second is the board itself. And I'm going to flip the next slide here. I like playing tournament play. It's the best, not the best, but it's what I enjoy doing, various reasons. And so when you show up at a tournament, the tables are laid out. I don't think this would be a tournament table. And you pick one side or the other. In this particular case, and that's kind of what happened here. So I'm, and I got to choose sides. So this was my choice. If I had forced and just rotated the map, and my table was pretty slick there, it would have been pretty easy to do. So that, say I deploy down here at the bottom, this is a totally different map that would play very, very different. Yeah, there would be 2 sides that would be split, but much more open, much more maneuverability for my horses, more shooting lanes, less cover to hide from my ranged threats in the crew. And this, I would think, would have been a very different game, and it would not have caused me quite the heartburn and dealing with these tight spaces where my lone marshal and mounted guard kind of got jammed into that corner there, and I just had no way to extrict them. Some blow it away or something that could eat markers, knowing those piano markers were coming. I thought about it, take a Papa Local, but I had discarded that. Really wish I had. I really wish I had taken that Papa Loco. Just to blow them away and maybe throw my own shockwaves, over the top. But anyways, I think the lesson here is don't get lazy and just accept one side or the other in physical play. I know the folks that play online, it's much, they probably think about this and say, no, duh, Michael. But we're oftentimes a bit bit lazy, and will just accept one side of the table or the other without thinking about a way to rotate rotate that map to something that's a little bit more advantageous. But again, think about deploying at the bottom or even the top. That's a lot. That whole left side is pretty open on the center line. And if I get 2 markers down there, I think I've got a much better ability to control that part, especially with all the gunfire and so on. And speed of the horses. The other is the hidden martyrs was just dumb. Not with a guild steward and guild lawyer who are going to just, by their nature and the way that they're used, be very much in the back of the crew. Should have gone claim jump. Just use maybe on the pale rider. I'm not sure. And moved my bubble into the center there to control it. It would have given me that 1 marker I was able to score. I would have been continued. Maybe I could have kicked it up farther, and really tried to do something along those lines. So, mistake in my scheme selection, mistake in not seeing the battlefield and the risks in it. My opponent playing very well. He did not give me any chance to. I do think he shouldn't have engaged the Pale Rider with the Midnight Stalker. He should have just hidden that one and readied the final point of outflank and let me go hunt it down. Would have been much tougher, and maybe I don't get all the kill it at that point. Just because I'd have to focus and it just take more AP. That's about the only mistake I would say he made. Other than that, I thought he played a very clever, solid game that just had me on my back heels the entire time. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed the battle report and my ramblings on this glorious midsummer morning. And just keep on flipping those cards, and we'll see you next time.